My name is Larkin Martini, and together with my partner, Jordan Helfrich, we are looking at a comparison of student and faculty perceptions of corporate social responsibility in the classroom. To do this, we are looking at the petroleum mining and geologic engineering departments on campus. This is because they have a similar array of jobs post-graduation. And in terms of what we are studying, mining and petroleum are what we're calling single track programs, and geologic engineering is a multi-track program. In single track programs, students in the same class follow the same class progression from sophomore year to graduation, where in comparison, multi-track programs have classes start together sophomore year and then split into separate tracks depending on their career interests towards the end of junior year. For geologic engineering, this is geotechnical and exploration. So when we refer to corporate social responsibility, we are talking about an umbrella term to refer to policies and programs that seek to reconcile the pursuit of profit with the well-being of the environment and people impacted by business. We're interested in teaching about CSR because it may help teach non-technical, macroethical concepts in a way that will be applicable to students in a work environment post-graduation and can help students understand limitations they may face in decisions post-graduation in industry settings, where oftentimes corporations have their own way of approaching social and environmental issues. And when we refer to macroethical, we're talking about ethics that aren't just self and what you can do as a person, those are considered microethical, but how your profession actually impacts society. So to make our comparison, we conducted student and professor interviews within the department and also sent out a student survey. For the student interviews, we had 6 total, 2 from each department, 1 male, 1 female. Almost all the students interviewed were upperclassmen in their 4th years, with the exception of 1 second-year student in the petroleum engineering department. For our professor interviews, we had 5 mining engineering, 4 petroleum engineering, and 5 geologic engineering. These represented about 25%, 35%, and 25% of their respective departments, though this percentage is sort of loose because there is some crossover between teaching and the departments. And then to bolster our more limited student interview data, we sent out a student survey to the various departments. We predominantly got undergraduate responses with 6 from both the petroleum and geologic engineering departments. However, in the mining department, we actually got a majority of graduate responses, which made comparison to our undergraduate student interviews a little more difficult. We had 5 graduate responses total and 3 undergraduate responses total from mining. So finding one for us was comparing the corporate social responsibility definitions provided from our interviews and our surveys to compare student and professors and understand where they're getting their understanding from. Looking at the survey responses, we actually provided the terms you see here, where the top 2 terms were provided by students in the other option. We do see a little bit of consistency with the students in the geologic engineering department and the petroleum engineering department. We don't see much consistency in the mining engineering, but we think this might be because we got more graduate responses, and graduates tend to have more industry experience as well as previous educational experience outside of mines. The student survey data seems consistent with the terms associated by the interviewed students. However, there was more mention of social license to operate with the student interviews, with one student actually entirely equating the 2 terms. We also saw more emphasis on the environmental aspects of CSR by the geologic engineering students. When comparing the professor responses, we don't see any correlation within the departments themselves, and there isn't any consistency between the students and the professors of the department either. This implies that the students and professors are gaining their personal CSR definitions from various sources other than the department, including but not limited to industry and internship experiences, as well as professional societies. Students in the interviews and the survey also mentioned social media as friends as other sources of CSR information. Finding 2 looked more at the pedagogical teaching methods, techniques mentioned by the professors. We had 3 prominent ones. Case studies / histories and CSR specific lectures were the most commonly mentioned, and we grouped together a few into this concept of micro insertions, which is contextualizing problems, changing class expectations to be more industry and teach moral and ethical dilemmas, and also adding bird walks that seem to link your technical and non-technical definitions. These are just a few options. There's many more mentioned in the literature. And then we classified these into 4 different categories based on our initial professor interviews. Our first dichotomy is this concept of implicit explicit, where implicit uses subtle methods of mentioning CSR, and the term is not always used directly, and it's not the centrally focused topic. Where explicit, the class is focused on CSR specifically, and the professors use the term directly. For the integrated separate dichotomy, integrated CSR is taught along with your technical topics as part of a larger project or concept in a technical course. This can include the micro insertions I previously mentioned in contextualizing, and is referred to pervasive in the literature. And then you have separate, which is where you're teaching CSR through specific courses and lectures, and it tends to be more in depth, and the focus is entirely on CSR. So we see this combination of explicit and separate in our general education curriculum, such as NHV, and other non-technical electives, such as environmental philosophy in the CSR specific course. Explicit and integrated, the CSR specific lectures, readings, and assignments in your technical and design courses. And then implicit and integrated is contextualization of problems and other micro insertions kind of integrated into course projects and some types of guest lectures that come in. We don't see any examples of implicit and separate, which tends to imply that implicit methods are always integrated with engineering content. And why does this matter? When we are trying to bridge this concept of the socio-technical divide represented here, where we have either social and technical separated or various forms, to finally where socio-technical is always integrated and tends to recognize that the technical is always already social and the social is always already technical in your problem definitions when you leave school. So looking at this, we think that explicit methods may further indicate to students that CSR and other non-technical topics are separate from the technical topics and tends to promote the technical over the non-technical. And also separate courses, while able to teach the concepts more in depth, has the possibility of overloading students if they are obligatory courses. The integrated methods, however, can be less overwhelming for schedules, and also when combined with integrated, kind of helps show the applicability of the non-technical topics to what you're learning technically. And finally, for finding 3, the single track departments that we were talking about tend to show earlier introduction of the industry-focused courses, and the corporate, because of this, can be introduced much earlier in the program. And these departments have actually made more moves towards more department integrated ethics, where multi-track programs tend to have a later introduction of industry-specific courses. And as one of our professor interviewees said, social responsibility first, corporate later. Ethics is currently being introduced through general education requirements and optional electives for senior design courses, according to our student interviewees. They're not really seeing as much in the department-specific classes. But similarly, both programs are focused on preparing students for industry post-graduation, and many professors have industry experience. So conclusion 1, lack of definition correlation implies that students receive their understanding of CSR from a wide range of sources beyond just their department. 2, teaching methods can be divided into these 4 categories, which by categorizing the teaching techniques may help us determine which methods are most effective in different situations. And then later introduction of industry-focused courses in our multi-track programs may require a different approach for ethics to be taught earlier on, with CSR being introduced later. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Please feel free to contact me if you have any more questions.